Hello and welcome to Edupedia World. So welcome to this episode where we will be creating a robotic arm. So the robotic arm we're going to be creating is going to look something like this. It's going to be pretty simple, and that's because what we want to do is set up the animation. So as you can see, I'm able to animate this robotic arm by just moving one small point, and that's the purpose of this tutorial. So it's going to be pretty exciting and very useful for animation. So let's jump into a new project and let's go ahead and start creating our robotic arm. So this is just made up of very simple objects. So I'll start by adding a cylinder and using these handles I will start to shape the object. So I'll call this the base, and then I will take a cube, start changing the size a little bit, move it up, and hold shift. It was in the center. Hold shift and start moving it to the side. So I'll move it 30 centimeters to the side. Hold control and shift and move up, and move 60 to the right side. That way we will have two boxes that are perfectly parallel and they are perfectly aligned to this this base. So I'll take these two cubes, maybe give them a name, I don't know, base cube, and base cube. I'll select both of them and drag them so they are a child of the base. That means if I take the base, click R, start rotating it, these two base cubes will follow along. I will then take a cylinder, rotate, hold shift to make it snap, press E, move it upwards, T to scale, and then use these guys to align it like this. So this will be my base pivot, and I will drag this just under the base. It doesn't really matter, this will just be static, so it will not rotate anything. It all follows along, so if I rotate this, everything moves with it. Let's create the arm. So add a cube and change the dimensions, and this will be the this will just be like the big arm, let's call it that, and we will put this below one of these guys, so it'll be below the base pivot. That would be the most logical thing to do. So we want it in a way that we can take this guy, press R and rotate it, and when we rotate it, it will rotate around this object down here. So in order to do that, we have to change the pivot, and the way we do that is that we first have to make it into an editable object. So we first have to select our big arm. Sorry, didn't mean to move that. Select the big arm, press C on the keyboard, and we will have an editable object. Next step is to click with your middle mouse button, go into the right view, and if we enable this guy over here, we're able to move the pivot around without moving the object. You can also press L and that will do the same thing. So we want to drag this in a way that it is in the center of our base pivot, as we called it. If we press this guy again, go out to the other view and start rotating, we will be rotating the point or this arm around this point down here. And that's how we want our robotic arm to move. So we want to add another cylinder. You can of course design your robotic arm however you want. This is just how I designed mine. It's very simple and also pretty unrealistic that anything should be able to move like through a solid cylinder. So our cylinder, this will be our joint, let's just call it that, and I will put that as a child of the big arm. If I rotate the big arm, it will follow. So I'll just take the big arm and press E, control drag upwards like this, and you'll see we have now got two big arms. So this big arm is the upper one. I'll take the joint and no, I should just leave it right here. I'll take the big arm and put it as a child of the other big arm. So this will be now the medium arm. And how will I make it a medium arm? I will do that by first taking this joint and putting it as a child of the big arm instead of the medium arm. Then I'll take the medium arm, press T, and I'll scale it down a bit. And since our pivot is down here, I'll just be adjusting the length like this. Take my joint up here, move it down, press T, maybe scale it in a bit like that. And then I'll take the joint and put it as a child of the medium arm once again. The reason why I moved the joint out of the medium arm is because it would be scaling when I changed the size of the medium arm, and that's not what I was interested in. So if we take the medium arm, press R and start rotating it, the joint will follow along. So I can do the same thing one last time. Call this small arm, put it beneath the medium arm, and if I rotate, you'll see it all working. I can take everything, because I don't mind that this gets smaller, just do T and scale everything down like this. And as you can see, this is now our robotic arm finished. I can select, just click down here on the big arm, rotate, click up here, rotate, click up here and rotate. And as you can see, now our robotic arm works as it should. So if you wanted to animate this, you could just go ahead at like 300 frames, select everything, add a keyframe for everything like this, move to maybe say frame 40, and rotate, and maybe take this guy and move it forwards, move this guy forwards, move this guy forwards like that. Add a new keyframe for everything like that, and as you can see, our robotic arm will be moving between those points like this. But this method, even though it's pretty easy to use, or pretty simple to use, I should say, it's not that it's, for some applications it's pretty fiddly. So let's say I wanted this robotic arm to move to this cube right here. So I would have to first rotate the base like this, rotate the base, and then I have to rotate this guy, and then I have to basically just fiddle around with these joints until the arm is perfectly aligned however I want it to this cube like that. I can set a keyframe for everything And as you can see, now it's going around and moving to this cube. But as you saw, I actually had to use quite a lot of time in order to get it in that position. And I'm actually, if I wanted it to be in a very, very, very specific position, it would actually be almost impossible. And that's where another way of controlling your robotic arms come in handy, and that is what's called inverse kinematics. So what we are doing right now, where we are telling each joint how it's rotated, that's called forward kinematics. And that can be useful for some cases, but with a robotic arm, it's actually much nicer to use something called inverse kinematics, and that's where you're basically telling the end where does the end have to be, and then the whole robotic arm will basically just move itself around in such a way that the end will be in that specific position. That may be a little bit hard to understand, but I will show you how it's done. So let's first go into our timeline, select all of this and press delete. That means all of our animation is gone. So I'll go into the big arm and basically put the rotation to 0 as it was when we all started. Go into the base pivot and the base, put this to 0. So now I have actually just reset my robotic arm, and I'm ready to start doing my inverse kinematics setup, as you saw in my other project. Right here I've got my end goal, and I can move it around, and the robotic arm basically adapts. So we want to first let's see, we want to take our big arm, which is this guy, and we want to right click, Cinema 4D tags, or actually, where is it? We want to go into character tags, and then we want to choose, pretty sure it's IK. Yep, it's IK. We want to choose IK, so right click, character tags, IK. And when you choose this IK, you can see there are quite a lot of options. So you want to add the IK to like the first joint, and in my case the first joint is my big arm, so you can see this is the first joint. I don't count this as the first joint, this doesn't matter, it's only like the actual robot arm. So this will be my first joint, and then if I select this guy, you can see there are a few things that I have to tell it. So it needs an end, and that's basically the tip of the robotic arm, so it's a joint, and if I click this guy, I can see it's this joint right here. So I will highlight this again, click and drag my joint onto the end like this, and that basically means this will be like the this has basically now been set as the end of the robotic arm. If you put this arm as the end, that means this link won't be rotating, so you need to put this as the end. So now what we want to do is add a goal. So the goal is basically, it's basically the position that the end of the arm has to be. So you could have your own null object like this floating around in the air, or you could have some other thing, maybe a sphere that you had animated that you wanted to be the goal for this arm. But you can also make Cinema 4D create its own goal. So if you had your own goal, let's say it's this null object, you would go in here, drag the null object into the goal slot, and as you can see, it starts doing some weird stuff. You could also delete this and undo, or the goal, please undo this. No, it won't. So you could, instead of using this null, you could say add a goal like this, and it will now have created a joint goal that is on the same level as your, like the base arm thing. So if you go into the joint goal, you can start moving it around, and it will basically be the same thing as the other version. So right now our robotic arm is all it's not how we want it to be. It's all rotated like out of position. So that has to do with the axis that you set it up to. So right now it's set up to auto, but we want to actually just go through and pick different axes. So let's just try X, and in this case X actually seems to work. Holy moly. Yep. So for some reason the x-axis was doing some very weird stuff. I've not seen that before, but if I choose something like Y, you can see the joints right here, they are lined up. They are doing the thing that they have to do, and if I move this around, you'll see they're actually rotating in the correct way. So let me just undo that. The one last thing that we have to do in order to for this to be good, it has to be rotated like 90 degrees to this way, this direction. So I'll go into this icon once again, and I'll just change the twist. So as you can see, it lines up in a way that it has to be minus 90 degrees, and now our robotic arm is looking much nicer. If we go into the end goal, you can see the rotation is a bit off. That was because of the first one that I made, where I had my own null that put the rotation off, but I can basically just put this to 0 on my own, like this. And now my joint goal is perfectly aligned with the X and C axis, which is the blue one. If I move it around, you will see my robotic arm starting to work. As you can see, there's a bit of funkiness with how it handles these kinds of positions. As you can see, it's when I go below the pivot, it actually turns 180 degrees around, and that's basically unavoidable. So, or maybe it's not unavoidable, but for this example, we're gonna have to live with it. But what we can see now is, if we have our base right here, what is parented to the base? Well, the base pivot, which is this guy, is a child of the base. So I can remove the base, and the base pivot, all this stuff will move with the base. Also, the big arm will move with the base. And the thing that's pretty interesting is that the joint goal, which is a child of the base pivot, will also move when the base is moving. That means we can do some very easy animations this way. We can say, okay, we want the robotic arm to be in this position and rotate it like this. So as you guys saw, I was having a few problems with my robotic arm basically leaning over to the side when I was to rotate the base. And some things that can help, because this is a little bit fiddly. There are a lot of variables that can change from time to time, but one thing that can help is going into this guy and changing the IK solver. Its default is set to 2D, but if you change it to 3D, this can help you sort out your problems. So as you can see right now, I can press E and move this guy around. I can move it beneath. I can do everything I want. I can rotate my base and basically just keep on animating like this. So let's just go in here, put this to 0, and let's start doing our animation. So I wanted to start off like this. I'll basically just do Control A and add a keyframe. Add a keyframe for everything. That's how I animate my robotic arm. Even though I only have to do it for the joint and the base, it's easier to just do Control A. So I'll move 80 frames forward, and then we'll do my next pose. I'll rotate the base. I will move the joint like this. Control A, add a keyframe, and I will move to, let's say, 120. Rotate the base over here. Move this up here. Control A, keyframe. Sorry, I didn't do Control A properly. Like this. Control A, add a keyframe. And if I were to play everything, we should see the robotic arm animating very nicely. Like this. And then at 120 we can have the base rotated like this, and the arm, sorry, I need to change the point, and the point all set up like this. Control A, add a keyframe, and we will see what we've got. And there we go. And let's say we want to have our robotic arm touch this guy's hands or something. So that could be something we wanted to do. Or maybe we wanted him to hit him in the head or something. Then with this setup, we can do it very easily. So we just need to rotate the base, and then we can basically put this right in his head. So the only thing you're gonna have to adjust is the rotation, and the position. I can basically just put it right where I want it, like this. I can do Control A, add my keyframe, and move it to the end. So this is one of the advantages of using inverse kinematics, that you can easily put the robotic arm's end in a very specific position. There we go. So that is about it for how we can rig and animate our robotic arm. It's now time that we actually try and make something a little bit more purposeful out of this and actually do a final render. Thank you for watching Edupedia World. Stay tuned for more videos.